friends. Today I am painting this floral piece. It's actually like a commission piece I did for one of you, and the tutorial for the whole thing would be probably too long, so I painted this one and thought, oh, stop, I need to video this for you guys because I know how much you love your poppies. So I thought I would go ahead and paint another one here, and you could kind of see my process. So I use a lot of glazing in here. I will tell you that. Lots of layers and building up darker as I get into the core of the flower. So let me show you what I do here. I've got my two wells of water. Of course, my beautiful Meeden that I'm embarrassed to show you because it has some dirty water in there. Always start with clean water, folks. But this is a great little palette. Won't spill over. If you've had that happen, it is a nightmare, I'm telling you. And I think I'm actually going to, because this is a commission, I'm going to, 1 second here, switch out and grab my Winsor Newtons. 1 second. So here we go. I've got my Winsor Newtons. And I'm going to give them a little spray, get them activated. I'll mostly be using my reds and my cad oranges and those type of colors. I'm using my more expensive paper here. So this is actually the Meeden paper. So let's do this. I'm going to go ahead and show you how I do at least one of these. I'm going to try the Neptune brush, which holds a lot more water and pigment because I'm doing a lot of like washes. And let's see how that goes. So I'm going to start with my cad yellow, Winsor Newton cad yellow, as just kind of the base, very light value. And I'm going to go in and just do a light wash over this. 1 second, folks. I'm losing my stuff here. There we go. All right, so I'm going to go in using the tip of my brush and placing my brush diagonal so I can use some of the belly of the brush and achieve a wider, broader stroke. But I want to go in with the tip to the corner and then start laying my brush down. Now I'm also going to be aware of those white spaces. So I'm not completely covering this in. See the white spaces I'm leaving in there? I'm going to grab some more. What did I do with my tissue here? If you feel you have too much water, just dot it off. And then I'm going to go in here. Do the same thing, and all my brush strokes are leading back to the center of the flower. Just like that. So the center of my flower is here. Okay? Wash and rinse my brush. And then let's see, I want to add some orange in here. So let me grab my cad orange. I really need you guys to wash my palette pretty quickly here. I think one of you even said something about that. And want to make sure, because I'm using this Neptune, which I don't usually, and it can hold, you guys, a lot of water, much softer. So I'm going to go in around the bottom here. See how much water that's holding? Not used to that because I don't usually use this brush. It's fine, it's just I need to get used to that. And I'm just touching in at the base of the flower because it's going to get darker as it starts tucking in, right? And then maybe just a tiny bit right here, because that's the fold of the leaf. Now I'm going to wash and rinse my brush. Get rid of, see how there's still orange paint in there? I did a tutorial recently on cleaning your brushes, and you want to make sure you keep rinsing your brushes when you're done using them till it is clear. See how much paint I can continue to get out of there? So before you put your brushes away, always make sure that's clear. Now this spread quite nicely. Gosh, I can't believe how much water this Princeton Neptune holds. And I'm coming into the paint with just a damp brush like that. So I'm going to let that sit and move on to my other petal here and pick up that yellow again. I don't want it too dark in value. I want it kind of light. And go in, lay down my wash. Just like that. I'm leaving a lot of that area white. And then while this is wet, I'm going to go in with a tiny bit of that orange and start laying it into the base of the petal. So this is wet on wet. Just like that. And then just kind of let that spread. Now, if this was a little bit drier on this side, so I'm going to go into it with a damp brush and just help it blend a bit. I want to go in just a tiny bit with my Cad Red, just a little bit, not too much, because that Cad Red can be really, look at that. I barely picked up any, and it's quite dark. And let's touch in to these areas at the base while it's still wet. I'm just dabbing in, and then I'm going to let that spread on its own, and then I'm going to go into this one too. And I'm letting that spread. Just like that. And then I think here, I'm going to go ahead and switch. Make sure I got all that paint out of my brush. So that's pretty clean now. I know that brush is good. And I can set that down. I'm going to grab my 8 because I'm just more comfortable, and this is a commission, so I want to make sure it comes out right. Velvet Touch. And I'm going to kind of go in here with some dabs of that red and just go into that base again. Just like that. Okay. There we go. And then I'm taking my brush, I just rinsed it, and I dabbed it off so it's just damp. And oh, it still has a little bit of that red paint in it. And I'm softening. Keep rinsing my brush, and I'm softening. So I'm coming into it with a damp brush. Anywhere I see the color has a hard line, I just work into it with a damp brush like that. And now I'm going to stop because I don't want to get too many blooms. I actually like blooms on my florals. For the base here, just like I did here, I'm going to go into my olive green. There we go. My water's just got a tiny bit of sparkle in it. And I'm going to lay down kind of a wet wash there using the tip of my brush to draw out that stem. And then I'll go into that with a little bit darker green. So I might add some of that red or orange to the green. That always makes a good shadow color of your florals, is if you add the color of the floral to your green. It really brings a cohesiveness. And if you need to, tap your brush off. See how much water's in there? And then go in, tap in here and there because that stem's still wet. And there you go. All right. Let me go in and do my last little petal here. So I'm picking up that yellow again that I created, that beautiful little wash. And I'm going to go into my petal here and just create that wash, that glaze, like that. And I could do this little petal, but I think I'm just going to wait a tiny bit. And then this one has a lot of white in it. It's kind of the lip of this petal. So wash and rinse my brush, go into that orange, making sure not to get that green. Yeah, you know what, you guys? I need to wash my Winsor Newton palette. I haven't used it in a while. I've been using my MeiLangs. And let's just tap in at the base here because that's where it's going to be kind of shadowy. And maybe even along here. I'm just tapping in, wash and rinse my brush. So it's just damp, and I go in and soften those edges like that. Okay. So we've kind of got the basis of this flower. The black in the center is going to be absolute last, okay? I don't want to do that until the very end. I'm going to use a tiny bit. I think for this one, I even added a little bit of pinkish tone to it. If I remember right, I did that, started it the other day. So look how pretty that color is. It has just a tiny bit of pink in it. Just a little bit. And now I'm going to create a wash. So I've got a very, very light value, just meaning it's got a lot of water to paint. Okay, doesn't mean I'm picking up a really, really large amount of water. It just means the paint pigment is diluted a little bit more, probably 90% paint, 10% water maybe. And I'm going to go in and just use the belly of my brush. So resting my palm, laying my brush down, and just going in and sweeping excuse me, my brush. I'm going to do that right here as well. So I'm running out of paint. Using the side of my brush and starting to lay down some darker shades here. Now, I don't want these hard lines. So I go in and wash and rinse my brush. I took out a little bit too much water there. And I'm going to go in, and yes, you will get some blooms, but like I said, I'm okay with those blooms. They don't bother me. And then let's go in and just add a tiny bit more of that deep red in the bottom here. And immediately, look what that does. It just immediately gives you that feeling that that petal is really kind of closing in. Like that. Isn't that pretty? Look at all the paint that comes out. So always making sure when you're done with your paintbrushes, I'm mostly, by the way, I'm not scrubbing my brush. I'm mostly putting pressure on the ferrule. Because the paint, you want to make sure you get out of the bottom of that ferrule. If your paint gets in here, your brush is going to be bad, get bad really, really quickly. So we don't want to do that. All right, I'm going to go into actually this little piece, and I'm going to use that darker red and create a wash. So I'm using the side of my brush. And now immediately I want to go in with a damp brush and soften those edges like that. So I like that. There we go. Yeah, that was exactly. I'm going to pick up a little bit of my orange, create a nice light wash, and let's go into this one here. I think over here. So I'll use the point of my brush and then lay my brush down and start just adding some colors in here. Look how beautiful they blend. And then go back in those areas and pick a little bit of that up. Just because I don't like hard edges at all. And there you go. That's how I got all these layers. I just kept going back in. At the same time, though, making sure that you're not getting rid of all your little white spaces. You do want to leave those. Okay. So I'm going in again. And going to lay down. That's a little vibrant, so I want to add some more water. And going to lay in a little bit more of these tones as I get down towards the bottom. Yeah, I like that a lot. That's exactly what I was envisioning. And as this dries, I'll go back in and add more. Wash and rinse my brush and just go right alongside there. And kind of lift. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to let that dry and let's play with our little bee here. So we'll go in first. I don't even know, did you even see that little bee there? And get a wash, a light wash of our cad yellow. And don't want too much water on my brush. And he's got 3 parts to his body, so just tapping in. Now here's where I might make sure I got all, look at how much red paint is still coming out, you guys. And again, I am really putting a lot of pressure on that ferrule. So it looks like I'm rubbing really hard, but I'm not scrubbing my brush. I'm putting the pressure on the ferrule. And I'm going to grab my 6 long because I want to get in there a little bit more. And let's be kind of careful, but pick up a little bit of our Payne's Gray. That's kind of my go-to black. And be careful here because once it touches that yellow, it's going to go whoo, and you're going to lose it. So I want to be a little bit careful here. I'm leaving a tiny bit of room between each area. He's got 3 areas and then his cute little head. Okay. So I touched in a little because I do want a little bit of blending there with the yellow, but not too much. And then his little teeny weeny feet or legs, you could use a ballpoint pen, just make sure it's waterproof. Just draw in those. And then for the final part of our bee, what I'm going to do is go back to my 8 round velvet touch. And I want a little bit more water, and I'm going to use the side of my brush and drag some of that yellow up. because their little leaves, their little wings are quite transparent. So we don't want a lot of color in them. Pick up my 6 round and grab the tiniest bit of that black. And there you go. Isn't he cute? And pretty easy. That's all I'm going to do to him, because I don't want him to be the focus point. I want the flower to be the focus point. Now, if you see here, as this is drying, I'm getting some of these hard edges again. So I'm going to go in and kind of soften those by doing some lifting, just like that. And I could go in here and do a very carefully light coat of that black, because I kind of want you to see. I might really have even used the 6 here, because I want to use the tip. So I'll go in and pick up a little bit more of that Payne's gray, dab in there. But really make sure you're not touching any of the red, because that will just immediately spread everywhere. Let that dry. I'm going to go in and pick up a little more of that red, and just, I keep glazing here. So right here, now this is a tiny bit wet. That's why I'm hesitating just a bit. Wash, rinse my brush, and going in with a damp brush to meet that area. Now see, this was a little wet. Okay, and you could even, using the tip of the brush, come up. There you go. So I just keep playing with these areas, keep adding layers. That's really all I'm doing here. And then I soften, I just keep softening those edges with a damp brush. Like that. And I'll just keep darkening and darkening and darkening. So I'll go in here, being careful not to touch that black. And then I'll go in, soften those edges, being careful not to completely get rid of those white spaces. So you can see here, I just keep working it. Maybe I want a little red coming down from this edge. So I lay that in there, use the side of my brush, just damp, and pick it up again. And I'll just keep going in and darkening and darkening and darkening. I feel like this one, I want to have a little bit more gold in, or even that orange. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of that and use the side of my brush. There we go. Yeah, I like that a lot better. Wasn't real happy with that color. Could even go in, add a little bit more of that orange and that cad yellow. Once this dries, I don't want to touch this too much more right now. As I touch it, right? I tell you guys always walk away, and I'm not doing it myself. We do have this little area here, so I'm going to go ahead and go in and glaze that over. Now I'm intentionally trying to kind of stay away from this petal up here, because I don't want it to turn into one big blob. But that's kind of this little loose petal here. Now, once this dries, I will go in like I did here. And I think what I use there, guys, is a Micron pen, which is, you want to make sure this is dry though. Okay, I'll just say that. Make sure this is dry. And then go in and just draw some tiny little filaments coming out of here. I'm going to go in now with my 6 long round. So through this whole tutorial, I'm switching back and forth between my 8 and my 6. And I want to add in a few little things here. These little hairy things I noticed on we have a lot of poppies here in the state park. And I noticed, and by the way, I'm adding some of that red to the green. They all have these little filaments on them. I don't know what else to call them, kind of hairy. Like that. Okay, I like that. So I wanted to do at least one so you could kind of see how I do it. Now keep in mind, I'm going to keep going in at the creases and adding in a little bit more color, a little bit more like this. So I will keep going in here and just laying down a layer. Lay down a layer like that. And then I go alongside that, the damp brush, and I kind of pick it up, soften that edge until I get the dark. See, I touched that black, so which is okay. It's fine now. I might have to kind of lift that up. Actually, I'll show you that. So if you do get something like that, you can just lift it up. I don't freak out like that. Okay. Alrighty. Well, I hope that was kind of fun. I hope that showed you a little bit of my process. For sure, I have a lot to go on this before I send it to this woman. But this at least gives you a little bit of my process of how I'm creating this. That petal is kind of underneath. So there you go. All right, everybody, I know you all love your poppies, and I think this is a really, really pretty one. And I hope you'll give this a try on yours, maybe this process anyway. All right, everybody, have fun, and I will list my materials. And this is actually something very similar to it, available in my tutorials if you'd like, my digital ones. Okay, thanks everybody, and thank you to my beautiful subscriber that ordered this original. I hope it works out well for you. All right, happy painting, everyone.